Now, you know, when the tobacco starts flowing and burning, it's going to be a really good story. And I have a very exciting, creepy tale for you. A lot of people have been asking and requesting for more Skinwalker tales. And I have a very, very creepy one for sure. Welcome back to another episode of Shanclen Shadow Productions. Like I mentioned in my intro, you guys have been asking and wondering where all the Skinwalker tales are, and I try, as far as for the lore and teachings about them, you know, I'm pretty much covered about everything, but I still have a couple more personal experiences that I'm willing to share with you, and this episode is going to cover just that. So this is going to be a time when I would say about 17, 18 years old. So I had a couple years of experience of training against these evil things, darkness, you know, started going out with my brother and my uncle at the time. Now, this trip involved myself and then a couple loved ones as well. And we were making an overnight trip over to the reservation. So in this story, this trip was, I would have to say, a little bit different from the normal times that we would go out to the reservation. So my brother and my uncle at the time were busy and they weren't available to come with me out to the reservation. So it was me and a couple loved ones. We went out to the reservation to my great-grandmother's home. And so this trip was going to be an overnight trip over there because early in the morning we were supposed to go butcher sheep. And so we ended up arriving at my great-grandmother's house, I would have to say about 10 or 11 o'clock. So normally my great-grandmother, she goes to sleep when the sun goes down. She's old, she's traditional like that, you know. Then the only one else I was awake was my other grandmother, who takes care of her and looks after her. And so normally whenever we would sleep there, we sleep in the living room. I normally sleep on the couch. And it was around springtime, so the weather was really good, you know, nothing too crazy. It was a good drive out there, you know, just speaking with my loved ones, having a good time, you know, sharing stories. And when I went out there, like I said, it was already dark, so everybody was getting ready to go to bed. I was tired from school that day, and you know, probably I think I had to take a test or something like that. It was something really stressful, and I remember that aspect of it. But you know, we get our bedding ready, we get everything ready because we normally have to get up before the sun comes up to be able to go get the sheep, be ready to butcher, and then we had to make our way back home. So typically, whenever we would spend the night out there, normally my older brother and my uncle would be out there as well, but this certain time they were busy, so it was just myself. So that was something that I was thinking about, honestly, on the whole drive over there, because when they came up and told me that we're going to be heading out there, I was thinking, like, I asked my brother, I asked my uncle, I was like, you guys coming out there? They're like, no, we're busy. You know, just look after our loved ones that are going out there, and it's going to be up to you now. You know, I was like, shit. So I ended up bringing up my weapons. At the time I brought my sword, and I didn't have any firearms at the time. And it would have to say maybe around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, my great-grandmother's dog started barking. And I've kind of grown to accustom my body to listen while I'm asleep. So when something like this happens, I immediately get up, I wake up, and especially with the hostile situation that we could be in, you know, you always kind of have to pretty much be ready whenever something like this happens. So I get up, and my loved ones that came with me on the trip were asleep, and I was like, okay, so it's pretty much going to be up to me now to make sure nothing happens. So I made sure to got my boots on, I got my jacket on just in case, and I just sat there on the couch for a little bit, and I waited and I listened, because normally on the reservation you have, you know, animals that show up, normal coyotes. But one thing I remembered is the whole point while we were there to butcher a sheep, and sometimes coyotes, even though they could be just normal, coyotes go out there and they try to eat the sheep that's out there. So they could be out there trying to eat one of our sheep. And so I'm sitting there, and not too long after, the dog started barking, and I was already sitting down just kind of waiting there listening inside the house. I started hearing coyote calls, and I was like, shoot, man. Well, so many things started running through my mind. I was just like, are those real coyotes? Are those Yannick? I'm not 100% sure, so I'm going to have to go and, you know, handle things myself. Luckily, my great-grandmother was such a warrior that my mother and grandmother used to tell me stories that whenever these things used to kind of come around, she always had a shotgun that was by the door, so when you open it, it'd be on that back side right there. And my mother and my grandmother used to tell me stories that, you know, when things would come around, she had no hesitation or fear. She would grab that shotgun and just one hand and just go out there and just start blasting and stuff. So she still had her weapon there. She still had her shotgun there. And the bullets were kind of just standing up there. So I took them. And then one of my loved ones woke up and they're like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "I got to go take care of this, make sure nothing's happening." They're like, "Okay, be careful." So I walk outside and the temperature was cold, man. And like I said, it was springtime, so it was colder than most compared to where I lived in the border town at the time. And I start making my way over to the sheep corral. Now, the sheep corral, I would have to say, is about 200-300 yards east of where the homestead is, kind of in a canyon area. So I'm walking and I'm vigilant. I'm looking left and right. And the whole time I'm just thinking, like, my brother and my uncle aren't here, so all my training is going to pretty much lead up to this point if anything does happen. So I end up walking and I keep walking. The dogs are just going crazy and the coyote calls are getting more and more. And one thing I noticed when I was walking was those coyote calls were coming from different directions. So they were all spread out around the sheep corral. And by the time I made my way over to the sheep corral, the sheepdogs were barking at me because they didn't really recognize me. So I went over there, I pet them, I calmed them down, but they were still like on guard. And the sheep were all just kind of corralled and gathered up in one corner of the sheep corral. And I was there and I just remember loading around inside of the gun, and I had my sword with me too on my back. And I was just looking around and I heard all the coyote calls around me, so I just went fired off one round. Everything got quiet. All the sheep kind of freaked out a little bit. You hear their bells moving, but the coyote stopped. And I was like, okay, well, hopefully that scared them off. And then I hear, ch-ch-ch. And I turn and look to my left. There's a little hill that kind of goes up right there, and there's a tree, and there's somebody standing there. And I pointed up the gun, and like, I'm not gonna lie, like I kind of gasped a little. I was like, and then I turned and looked, and I pointed the gun. And I said, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And like I said, the only people that were there were my great-grandmother, two of my grandmothers, and one other loved one that I had with me at the time. And I pointed the gun up there at them, and I asked, "What are you doing? Who's here? Announce yourself." And they didn't say anything. They just stood there. And sure enough, I hear another ch-ch. I turned and, like, I had my gun still on them, and I turned and looked, and there was somebody else. I'd have to say about 50 yards away at another tree right there. And then the dogs just started barking and going crazy. And so when I looked and I turned back, that person was gone. And I was like, fuck. And where I was, the sheep corral was, like how I said, was kind of in a canyon. So there's two hills that come down. I was standing in the middle. The sheep corral was right here. There's two people that way, and it leads up more into a canyon that way. So I was just hitting myself on the back of the head and just kicking myself. I was like, I put myself in an ambush position. And I remember I was freaking out, and just the things that were running through my head was, there's no one else here. They're trespassing. And I gave warning. I was just like, if you don't leave, I'm going to take a shot at you. If you don't leave, this is what's going to happen. Sure enough, they just stood there. I aimed, got it, fired. Pulled the trigger, and I shot toward the person. They didn't move. The bullet went right through them. And I was like, holy crap. Like, this is a Yenagloshi. This is a Skinwalker. Not in the physical form. This is more so of the Yenagloshis and Skinwalkers. It's in the spiritual form. And sure enough, I saw that red glow of their crystals start to glow more. And I saw that glow slowly start making its way over toward me. And I turned and looked where that other person was. He was north of me, where he was at the sheep corral, and he was on the other side of it right there, and the dogs were just barking. And at this point, I was really relying on the dogs to kind of sense out and smell where these beings were. And as that person started coming closer, how people ask me, how do you see spirits? How do you see these certain things? And if the situation does arise, I can see them pretty kind of clearly, but in the silhouette or shape of a human being, but it's more so microwaved with heat waves, I guess you can say. But what really gave it off was that red crystal that they Yenagloshis always have on them. So he was coming closer, and I took another shot, but it went straight through. And I said, all right, this is enough. So like I ended up putting the gun down, and I drew my sword, and they came closer. And as they kind of came closer, I just gripped my sword and I was just thinking, and then I started praying, and then I started singing some songs, 2 protection songs. And luckily, as he started getting closer, I was looking around like I really wish I had like frog eyes to where I could look at one person and another eye would be scanning, but like I was using my peripheral vision, sensing everything out, and I was just ready at that point. I didn't try to make the first move because there was still a little ditch between me and him. And as that person, that spirit, started making his way over to me, the dogs started barking in the direction right behind me, and I sensed somebody standing right behind me. So I turned and I looked, and that Yanagloshi already had Wishte, and I couldn't move. And at the time, like how I said, I didn't have everything. I wish I had some of the sacred medicines and herbs, and this one time I forgot because I was tired, what have you, whatnot. I forgot to partake and eat those medicines that kind of counteract the paralysis effects of the Yanagloshi. So I turned and looked, and as I looked, it was just my head that turned. I had my sword and I was gonna go, but I was frozen, and it felt like a giant cramp that overtook my body, and it hurt. And I tried moving, but it was just a couple seconds that Yanagloshi was standing right there, and he had that Wishte, that bone powder poison, and so he went like that. He blew it inside of my face, and like all I could do is like just I tried not to breathe, I tried not to do anything, but it was already like in my eye, all over my face. And sure enough, luckily one of the dogs from the sheep corral jumped over the wall of the sheep corral and went and started barking, and he almost bit that Yanagloshi that was right there. So sure enough, when that dog jumped over, that Yanagloshi saw it and he ran, and that second one that was coming disappeared. Like after that dog jumped over, I guess you could say the paralysis effect of that being was gone, and I turned and looked, but then like it turned this way real quick, and that other Yanagloshi that was standing over here was gone, that I took shots at. So they were gone, but I had all that stuff on me. So immediately, like I tried wiping all that stuff off, but I remember some of it was actually like after the effects wore off, I had to take a breather, like a little bit, and then some of it got inside of my nose and some of my mouth. I was like, fuck. So I tried wiping it off, and I tried breathing, but it's very, very sticky, potent stuff, I guess you could say. So the dog ended up saving me at that point. The dog that was there, that's why, I always love that sheepdog. To this day, he's a really good puppy. And so if it wasn't for him, it might have been a different story at the time. I may not be here telling you guys this story that's happening here. And afterwards, what happened was I got the sheepdog back in the thing. There was no more coyote calls. There's no more weird things kind of running around and stuff. So I make my way back over to the home, and I had to wash off with some of the water that we had outside, just try to wash it off my face. And I called my brother, called my uncle, told them what was happening, and then they stopped what they were doing and they drove out there and did a little ceremony for me to kind of counteract. And I had to consume herbs and eat some of the medicines to kind of counteract the poisons that were there. And first thing they said was, I was telling them what happened. They're like, "Do you eat the medicine or the protection medicine against paralysis? Do you put Aish on?" I was like, "No." And they're like, "What was the first thing we told you when we're interacting and fighting these things? You always have a spiritual protection with you." And I was like, "I know, started making excuses. I was just like, I'm tired, it was quick. I had to run out there, emotions were high and like that." So luckily, thankfully, I'm always going to be grateful of that sheepdog at that time. And, I learned so much about that at that single point, because I didn't have my spiritual medicines to stop or counteract the paralysis. And 2, the bullets that were at my great-grandmother's place at the time were not blessed. So they went straight through those spirits. Didn't have no damage or anything like that. And I'm just like, golly, man. So I ended up going home, resting up, like my brother and my uncle met me out there, did the ceremony and stuff. And the next morning we ended up butchering the sheep. I kind of slept in, they kind of helped out and took over. And so the next morning, the next day we had the ceremony went good, that we went there for to butcher the sheep. And so it's just, yeah, it was rough. A rough first time for me, all alone. And you could say I failed, but luckily it didn't cost me my life. So yeah, that's going to be a tale that I had of literally one-on-one close encounter with Yanagloshis on my reservation, and it did not turn out well. But luckily I'm still here, and whoever they were, screw you guys. Just kidding. Yeah. But like I said, I learned a lot of stuff from that. I learned a lot of valuable lessons from it, and honestly never happened ever again, thankfully. So that's one thing for everybody out there that may be out on the reservation. If you go out to protect your sheep from coyotes, just be sure to put some ash and tish on and bless your bullets, because you never know, it could be a little bit more than just a coyote out there. So again, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for watching this episode. I got a few updates here for you guys, which is actually pretty amazing and awesome. I got my YouTube play button right here. So this is the milestone for the 100,000 subscriber mark right here. So I'm going to be hanging this up inside of my office here. I also got like the little letter. Do you remember your 1,000, 10,000, and now you're 100,000 subscribers, which is pretty much YouTube thanking me for everything. And, you know, I can't thank you guys enough, the viewers and everybody that's out there, for enjoying my content, for enjoying my stories, and just pretty much, you know, like delving into the spiritual world of my experiences, everything I've learned, to hopefully, you know, some of these stories and some of these teachings that I give you guys can actually help you guys out there too. So this is going to be, yeah, I took a little break from the paranormal investigation video because last week I was actually sick. So seasonal change, you know, allergies got the best of me. Like, it started out with sniffles, then it just got really worse from there. I was like, oh no. So I got some Claritin. So, you know, allergies, real dusty and windy outside. So yeah, if you guys haven't yet, we have our first paranormal investigation out on the Shanclen Shadow Productions channel. So we went to the Apache Death Cave. So if you want to see how me and my two new members, Shush and Cowboy, interact with spiritual beings and deities at the Apache Death Cave, go check out that video, because yeah, it was really fun to edit. It was a really good investigation. Learned a lot of stuff there too. So we have our next paranormal investigation lined up and scheduled here in the next couple weeks, but I'm going to go ahead and start getting prepared and ready to head to WonderCon in Anaheim, California this year. So I'm going to be doing some Geek Speak stuff. You'll probably see some vlogs on the second channel. And if you're not a part of the second channel or subscribed yet to the Shanclen Shadow Lodge channel, go subscribe. There's going to be some more videos coming out your way very, very soon. Also, if you want to become a member of this channel too, be sure to become a member to get early access to videos and to, yeah, we're going to have some live streams coming up here very soon. Members only videos you guys get to check out. I'm also working on a new line of merch, which is going to be very exciting. I'm drawing up some designs right now. So it's going to be good. It's going to be beautiful. It's very productive. I'm going to be going to Gathering of Nations in April. So look forward to that too. If you're going out there, come say hi. And yeah, that's pretty much all the updates I have. A lot of amazing stuff coming up for you guys. I'm going to have another live stream up here next Monday for you guys. So I'll try to do every Monday and then every Thursday for uploads. Unless I'm not feeling well or got some stuff to do, but maybe I'll record an episode prior for it. So yeah, don't gotta worry about it. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys have a good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. Hokore! You know, I always wonder, because sometimes I see families out there on the res that have llamas and alpacas instead of sheepdogs. I wonder what a llama would do against a skinwalker. Also donkeys too. There's donkeys out there. That'd be something like a Lord of the Rings thing where a talking llama shows up to me and he's just like, warrior, I'm the guardian of the sheep corral, here to protect you against evil and darkness. Like, thank you, llama. Bless me with your teachings and your fur. Got 2 basketball games next week too. Looking forward to that. Yeah. Be balling it up. Shanclen be balling it up again. It's been 10 years. But last week, yeah, I played my first game. Yeah, my ankles ain't what they used to be. Still got the hops though. Still got the hops. And the shot. Take care everybody. Hope you guys enjoy the bloopers. Outtakes, my mess ups. A little bit of the lighter side from a scary story, I guess you can say.